It was supposed to be a peaceful evening in the quiet town of Maplewood, Ohio. The summer air was thick, heavy with humidity, and the sound of cicadas echoed across the rows of modest suburban homes. From the outside, everything looked ordinary. But inside one house, a storm was quietly building. One that would end in tragedy. A tragedy that neighbors would later say they never could have imagined. David Miller was a man who prided himself on responsibility. At 36 years old, he worked long hours at a local factory, his hands permanently calloused from years of labor. He wasn't wealthy, but he provided. His wife, Jennifer, stayed at home, taking care of their 6-year-old daughter Emily and their newborn son, Jacob. To anyone looking in from the outside, they were the picture of a young American family trying to make it. But David carried a secret doubt, a gnawing, whispering voice that had been growing louder over the last year. He'd look at Jacob, the baby boy he believed was his, and something inside him would twist. The boy's features didn't quite match. His hair color, his eyes, even his mannerisms. David tried to push the thought away, but suspicion has a way of rotting the mind from the inside out. Jennifer noticed it too, the way David lingered when he looked at Jacob. The questions he asked, questions loaded with meaning. "Don't you think he looks a little different?" David muttered one evening as Jennifer rocked the baby. Jennifer stiffened, her voice low and defensive. "He's your son, David. Stop with this nonsense." But the seed had already been planted. David's doubts didn't just appear from nowhere. Months earlier, a coworker had made a comment, half joking, about Jacob not looking like him. That single remark festered until it consumed him. He started checking timelines, doing the math in his head, recalling nights when Jennifer said she was too tired or had been out late with friends. Every memory became a puzzle piece in a larger, darker picture. One night, after a few drinks, David sat at the kitchen table staring at a photo of Emily and Jacob side by side. Emily's features resembled his, her nose, her jawline, even her laugh. But Jacob looked like someone else. And David thought he knew who. There had been a man, a neighbor named Tom Andrews, who always seemed too friendly with Jennifer. David remembered seeing them talk in the driveway one afternoon, Jennifer laughing at something Tom said, her hand brushing his arm. At the time, he brushed it off. Now, in the silence of his suspicions, those moments screamed betrayal. He needed proof. David ordered a DNA paternity test kit online. He told no one. For a week, the small package sat hidden in the trunk of his car. Finally, one night when Jennifer was in the shower, he swabbed Jacob's tiny mouth, sealed the sample, and sent it off. The waiting was unbearable. Each day, David carried the weight of his doubts, snapping at coworkers, drinking more than usual, and growing distant from Jennifer. She noticed, of course. "What's wrong with you lately?" she asked one night, her voice sharp. David shrugged. "Just tired." But inside, he was anything but tired. He was boiling. When the results came back, David sat at the kitchen table alone, the envelope trembling in his hands. He already knew the truth, or at least he thought he did. But nothing could have prepared him for the finality of reading it. Jacob was not his son. The room spun. His throat tightened. He gripped the edge of the table, the words burning into his brain. Not his son. Not his blood. He thought of the years he had given Jennifer, the sacrifices, the overtime shifts, the sweat, the dreams he had buried just to provide for their family. And now this betrayal? His mind replayed every smile, every moment of trust, every whispered, "I love you." To David, it all felt like a lie. Jennifer walked into the kitchen moments later, drying her hands on a towel. She saw the paper on the table, the look on David's face, and her heart dropped. What is that?" she asked, her voice trembling. David's hands shook as he held up the results. His voice was low, dangerous. "You want to explain this to me?" Jennifer's face went pale. She stepped back, her mind racing. "David, don't you dare lie to me," he snapped, slamming his fist against the table so hard the envelope slid to the floor. Tears welled in Jennifer's eyes. "I never meant for this to happen. Please Please just listen." David stood, towering over her, his eyes wild with fury and heartbreak. "Who is he? Who's the father?" Jennifer hesitated, her lips trembling. Finally, she whispered, "It was Tom. I was weak. It was one time. I swear." The confession hit David like a freight train. His fists clenched, his chest heaving. He couldn't breathe. Betrayal wasn't just an idea anymore, it had a name. That night, David didn't sleep. He sat in the living room with the lights off, a bottle of whiskey in his hand, staring into the darkness. Jennifer cried herself to sleep in the bedroom, clutching Emily and Jacob close, fearing what David might do. David's mind was a storm. Rage, grief, humiliation. It all crashed together in waves. He thought of leaving. He thought of ending his own life. But most of all, he thought of revenge. By morning, his anger had hardened into something else. Resolve. If Jennifer could destroy everything they had built, if she could rob him of his dignity, then she didn't deserve to keep what she had left. In David's twisted logic, if the family wasn't truly his, then no one should have it. He made a decision. The day seemed ordinary to outsiders. Neighbors saw David mowing the lawn, waving half-heartedly. Jennifer ran errands, stopping at the grocery store. Emily played outside with friends, her laughter carrying across the street. No one could have guessed what was about to happen. Inside, David was preparing. He cleaned his handgun, the same one he kept locked in a case for protection. He loaded each bullet with care, his face expressionless. Jennifer returned home that afternoon, bags in hand. She stepped into the kitchen, calling for David, but the silence felt heavier than usual. David emerged from the living room, the gun tucked behind his back. "David?" she asked, frowning. "What's going on?" He didn't answer. His eyes locked on hers, cold and distant. Jennifer's breath caught in her throat. She saw something in him she had never seen before, something terrifying. "Please, don't do this," she whispered, realizing what was happening. But David's mind was made up. Jennifer froze in the doorway, her hands still clutching the grocery bags as David stepped closer, his face drained of all tenderness. His silence was more terrifying than any shouting could have been. She tried again, her voice breaking. "David, please think about Emily. Think about Jacob. They're innocent. Whatever you're feeling, don't take it out on them." David's jaw tightened. His knuckles whitened around the grip of the gun hidden behind his back. He thought of Emily, his little girl who shared his smile, his laugh, his blood. And then he thought of Jacob, the child who wasn't his, the child who symbolized everything he had lost. He spoke, his voice eerily calm. "I gave you everything, Jen. Everything. And you gave me nothing but lies." Jennifer shook her head violently, tears streaming. No, David, it wasn't like that. I made a mistake. I was lonely, you were always working, and I was weak. But it didn't mean anything." Her words only fanned the flames. "Didn't mean anything?" he spat. "You let him into our bed. You let him take what was mine. And then you made me raise his son like a fool." Jennifer's body trembled. She took a slow step forward, hands out as if approaching a wild animal. "You still have Emily. She loves you. She's your daughter. She needs her father. Don't throw everything away." But David's eyes were already gone, distant, dark, locked onto the betrayal he could never forgive. That night, the house was a powder keg. David kept the gun within reach as he sat in the living room, his face blank. Jennifer locked herself in the bedroom with the children, whispering reassurances into Emily's hair while Jacob fussed in her arms. Inside her head, Jennifer's thoughts raced. If I can just get through the night, if I can just wait until morning, maybe he'll calm down. Maybe I can take the kids and leave. But David wasn't calming down. Every minute that passed was another drop of gasoline on the fire inside him. He replayed Tom's name over and over, muttering to himself, imagining his wife in another man's arms. By dawn, he wasn't thinking about reconciliation. He was thinking about punishment. The next day, Jennifer tried to act as if things were normal. She cooked breakfast, set plates at the table, and forced a smile for Emily. but her eyes darted constantly toward David, watching his every move. Emily sensed the tension. Children always do. "Mommy, why is Daddy so mad?" she whispered. Jennifer's throat tightened. She brushed her daughter's hair back and kissed her forehead. "Daddy's just having a hard time, sweetheart, but it's going to be okay." Inside, Jennifer didn't believe that. David ate in silence, his fork scraping against the plate. Then, without a word, he stood, grabbed his keys, and left the house. Jennifer exhaled, relieved for the small reprieve. But dread filled her again when he returned an hour later carrying a box of ammunition. Her heart sank. That evening, Jennifer tried one last time. She waited until Emily was asleep, until Jacob was dozing in his crib. She found David in the garage, cleaning his gun again, the metal glinting under the fluorescent light. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "David, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling, we can work through it. I'll do anything to make this right." David looked up at her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Jennifer thought she saw a flicker of mercy. But then he spoke, and her hope shattered. "You can't fix what's already broken." Jennifer dropped to her knees, clutching his arm. "Please, if not for me, then for Emily, for Jacob." He ripped his arm away, his voice a low growl. "Don't you dare say his name. He's not mine. He never was." Jennifer's sobs echoed in the cold garage. She realized then that the man she married was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. The breaking point came 2 nights later. Neighbors later said they heard shouting, the sound of glass breaking, and then silence. Inside the house, Jennifer stood between David and the children, her arms outstretched. "David, stop. Please, stop. Think about what you're doing." David's chest heaved as he raised the gun, his eyes wet with tears. "I can't live like this. I can't live knowing I was made a fool." Emily's small voice broke through the chaos. "Daddy, don't." For the briefest second, David hesitated. His hand trembled, his eyes flickered with doubt. But the storm inside him was stronger than his daughter's plea. And then, midpoint CTA. Before we continue, if you're finding this story gripping, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Uncovered Crime, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps us bringing you more untold stories. The silence before the storm was deafening. Jennifer stood frozen in the living room, her children clinging to her legs, as David's trembling hand leveled the gun. His eyes were bloodshot, his lips quivering. For just a moment, it almost looked as if he might put the weapon down. But then he muttered under his breath, more to himself than anyone else. "They were never mine to begin with." The sound of the first gunshot shattered the night. Jennifer screamed, instinctively pushing Emily behind her. She lunged toward David, trying to wrestle the gun away, but the second shot rang out, striking her in the chest. She collapsed to the floor, gasping. Her hands pressed desperately against the wound as blood spread across her shirt. Emily shrieked, her voice piercing the air. "Mommy! Mommy!" David's hands shook violently as he stepped closer. He stared down at Jennifer, her wide eyes filled with fear, her lips trembling as she tried to whisper one last plea. "Please don't hurt them. Please. They're just kids." But David's mind was gone, twisted, consumed by betrayal. He looked at Emily, his daughter, his blood, and then at Jacob, the boy who wasn't his. Rage and heartbreak collided in his chest. He raised the gun again. By the time neighbors heard the final shots and called 911, it was already too late. When officers arrived at the Miller home, the scene that greeted them was one that would haunt even the most seasoned detectives. Jennifer lay lifeless on the floor. Emily, the bright-eyed little girl who once rode her bike down the block, was gone. Jacob, just a baby, was silent forever. And David? He was sitting on the couch, the gun still warm in his lap, his face blank. When officers burst through the door shouting commands, David didn't resist. He simply looked up, his voice hollow. "They weren't mine." The news of the tragedy spread like wildfire. Maplewood was a small town, the kind where everyone knew each other's names, where children played freely in the streets, where families shared backyard barbecues. Now it was a town forever scarred. Neighbors left flowers and stuffed animals on the miller's front lawn, tears streaming as they tried to make sense of the unthinkable. How could a father, a husband, a man they thought they knew, commit such horror? Reporters flooded the street, their cameras flashing as they recounted the timeline. The suspicions, the DNA test, the confession, and finally, the massacre. In court, David sat stone-faced. Prosecutors painted him as a cold-blooded killer, a man who valued pride more than life. His defense argued insanity, claiming the DNA results broke his mind, that betrayal pushed him past the brink of reason. But the jury didn't buy it. They saw a man who had choices to walk away, to divorce, to start over, but instead chose murder. After just 4 hours of deliberation, the verdict was read. Guilty on all counts. David was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He showed no emotion as the judge spoke, his eyes fixed on some faraway point no one else could see. For Jennifer's family, the sentence offered little comfort. They had lost a daughter, a sister, a mother, and 2 innocent children. No amount of justice could bring them back. One relative spoke outside the courthouse, her voice trembling as she addressed the cameras. Jennifer made a mistake, but she didn't deserve to die for it. And those children, they were innocent. They deserved to grow up. He took that from us and from this world. The tragedy became a cautionary tale of jealousy, betrayal, and the devastating consequences of unchecked rage. Experts appeared on television panels, psychologists discussing how fragile the human mind can be when pushed to the edge. But in Maplewood, the explanation didn't matter. What mattered was the 3 lives lost. In his prison cell, David sat alone, staring at the gray walls. He replayed the moments again and again, the discovery, the confrontation, the killings. In the stillness of the night, sometimes he swore he could still hear Emily's voice, pleading with him, "Daddy, don't." But it was too late. The damage was done. This was not just another crime. It was a story of betrayal and broken trust, of innocence stolen and lives shattered. It was a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous monsters aren't strangers lurking in the shadows. They're the ones living right inside the home. White heavy checkmark, final CTA. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe to Uncovered Crime, hit the bell icon so you never miss a case, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.